Hello everyone and welcome back to the Synergy Sanctum. My name is Justin. Thank you so much for stopping by. Here at the Synergy Sanctum, we specialize in all things related to Magic the Gathering, with a specific focus on deck building. So I aim to show you very quick deck techs that'll show you all of the cards in the deck and how they work together to ultimately achieve the goals of that deck. If you're not already, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate that. And we also have a sister channel now, so head on over to Commander Coliseum and check out their content as well. And for today's deck tech, we have Auntie Blyte, Bad Influence, an EDH burn strategy here. Very affordable, sort of on a budget at $94 to $105 current TCG market value. And we're running land count of 32 lands, with 30 of those being mountains and 2 of those being non-basics. So if we look at Auntie Blyte over here, she has flying, she's a 2/2, and whenever a source you control deals damage to you, she gets that many counters, and then you could pay 2 to remove X counters from her, and she does X damage to any target. So not only is she a flyer, she's going to get super big with all of these counters, but you could also remove those counters at any time to have her just fire off that damage. So this deck is interesting because you are going to be risking your life and using your life as a resource to get Auntie really big, and then you're going to basically either swing out with her for commander damage, or you're going to get to remove the counters to do damage to something. So we are going to get into this today, but as you can guess, our first slot of cards here is damage to me, so the damage that I'm going to do to myself, and we want this to be sort of significant but also incremental, because we don't want to drain our life to the point where we're gonna die. we want to kind of have a good balance here of there's damage happening to me, and then I've got Auntie as a threat on the table if I need it. So we're running things like Orcish Artillery, and there's a lot of cards like this where it does 2 damage to something and then it does 3 damage to you. We are running Mana Barb, so everybody that taps lands for mana is getting a damage. Fire Slinger is dealing 1 damage to any target, and then a damage to you. We've got Heartless Hidetsugu to drain everybody by half their life. Goblin Artillery is doing that 2/3 thing again. Fire Drinking Satyr is really interesting because when it's dealt damage, it does that much damage to you, and you could pay 2 to have it deal a damage to itself. Edaline of the Great Revel is saying when a player casts a spell 3 or less, it's dealing 2 damage to that player. Ancient Ruins is dealing damage based on artifacts. Char is doing 4 to a creature and 2 to you. And then Chain of Plasma is dealing 3 to a target creature or player, but they can discard a card to repeat that spell. So you can kind of keep this going with Auntie and then swing out for the win. More damage to myself, so we're doing Acidic Soil, which is doing damage to everybody based on lands. Barbarian Ring is tapping for a red to deal a damage. Barb Flare Gremlin, similar to Mana Barbs, when you tap a land, it's dealing damage. Zozu the Punisher is dealing 2 off of lands coming in. Warmonger has an interesting ability. For 2, it does a damage to everything without flying, and each player and anybody can pay into that, so really kind of consistent, repetitive damage there. Spear Spewer is doing it to each player. Orcish Cannonade's doing this 2 damage, 3 damage thing again. Sulfuric Vortex is preventing life gain. Rampaging Ferocidons off of creatures entering. And then Orcish Cannoneers is doing that same 2 to 3 thing again. And then we've got additional damage to everybody with Volcanic Fallout, dealing 2 damage to every creature and each player. So it's important to kind of play these little single damage instants first to get Auntie big enough so she survives these larger board wipe type damage effects. Sunspine Lynx is dealing damage off of non-basics when it enters. Sawhorn Nemesis is forcing 1 player to get double the damage. Razorkin's dealing damage off of draws. Spell Shocks off of spells. Slagstorm is sort of like a pseudo board wipe. You can do the damage to a creature, bolt every creature, or bolt every player. Pyrostatic Pillar is doing it when a spell of 3 or less gets played. Pyrohemia is a board wipe as long as there's a creature left. So again, if Auntie's big, she'll survive this. You can kind of keep the boards clear. Magebane Lizard is off of Casts. Mob Verdict is off of Votes, but it does damage equal to how many creatures the player has. Price of Progress is dealing damage by non-basics, and then Prisoner's Dilemma's got a bunch of damage divided among different modes depending on who chooses Silence or Snitch. Even more burn for the deck, so we're running Lightning Bolt. If we're going to be going in for commander damage, Kedis is a showstopper here with Auntie because she'll fly over everybody dealing like 10 to 20 damage, and then Kedis is doing that to everybody else. Harsh Mentor is doing it off of activated abilities. Flame Break is doing the 3 damage to each creature without flying and each player, and then creatures dealt damage can't be saved that turn. Ashleen's kind of a backup plan to Auntie because she can keep getting bigger and then blow up the board. Blasphemous Act is our board wipe. Flame Rift's dealing 4 to each player. Fault Line's dealing X to each creature without flying in each player. So we're running pretty much all of the spells that are doing it to the board as well as to the players. And we're doing it to the board so that we avoid people coming in when we're draining our life. Dingus Staff is doing it when creatures die. Chain Lightning's repeatable if the player pays 2 red. And then Arcbound says choose target creature. When that creature is dealt damage this turn, it deals that much damage to each other creature and each player. So really broken there. And then Delaying the Loss. So we are running the 2 cards in this deck that prevent us from losing. So if our life total gets low or if it becomes 0, Platinum Angel and Fortune Thief will both keep us alive until they are removed from the field. And then we've got other good stuff in the deck. So targeted removal with Chaos Warp. We are going to be doing a ton of damage. So something like Spine Rock Knoll with the Hideaway is going to hit pretty quickly. People are going to be taking 7 or more damage pretty quickly here with all of these cards. Brash Taunter, if it takes damage, is dealing damage to an opponent. So he'll survive all of these like kind of pseudo board wipes. And then we're running cards of this suite like Fiend Lash, Soul's Fire, and Chandra's Ignition, where you're choosing a target creature and you're probably choosing Auntie. And then you're going to be able to do her damage to anything. And then also you can be sacking her as well. So you can sack her with Fleeing or Rupture, and then she's dealing that much damage to a single target or to the whole board state, as well as every player with Rupture. And then lots of draw in the deck. So the expected red draw cards here: Thrill of Possibility, Tormenting Voice, Seize the Spoils and Grab the Prize. And then additional ones that are making treasures and other things like Big Score and Unexpected Windfall. Faithless Looting's got the Flashback. And then our mana in the deck, we're running a Soul Rain, we're running a Solemn, we're running Runaway Steam Kinks. We're going to be casting a lot of red spells, although with this burn strategy, he might not survive very long. We've got Mana Geyser for late game to get red for each tapped land, Ruby Medallion to discount all these spells, and then Mana Flare to double up our lands, and Neheb to give us red for each life opponents have lost this turn. So 1 or 2 combats getting through with Auntie or casting these spells for a couple of turns, Neheb's going to make you a ton of red mana to probably close out the game. And with that, our show has come to an end. Thank you so much for watching our video, and if you enjoyed that video, feel free to share it out with any friends who might find value in it as well. Thank you so much for stopping by. We hope to see you again soon. Have a good one.